Hi, Pat the Podcast Editor here. In today's episode, Dan and Lloyd talk about capacity planners and how to use them to maximise time efficiency, whether you're a one-man band or a multi-million pound corporate business.
So capacity planning allows you to actually work out the exact time you have in your business. Traditionally, it's used for big businesses. I've found it crazily useful in our business that doesn't have 500 people.
We'll also hear about the structure of Lloyd's own personal capacity tracker and what it can do for you.
We do it, sounds old school when I say it, Excel spreadsheet. Each person that you have within your business has a little square for every day. And that little square gets colour-coded towards different projects or clients.
So set your learning brain to maximum capacity and let's get stuck in. This is episode 94 of the Business Anchors Podcast.
We're just a couple of business anchors. Welcome to the Business Anchors Podcast. This jingle is slightly too long.
What on earth is capacity planning, Lloyd? It sounds really, really boring.
Well, you're right, Dan, it is. That's why I'm talking about it.
Why is it always you that talks about the boring episodes?
No, it's not boring. It's useful.
We were just saying, actually, before coming on air, I've always wanted to say that, that some of our more, inverted commas, boring episodes like this, where it's more practical stuff, have done really well. Like, we got 500,000 views on TikTok for our tax planning one. I recently got 100,000 views on my Insta Reel about tax planning.
Yeah. And big numbers like that really mean so much, don't they, Dan? It means that we are brilliant people. So
no, but you know what I mean? We're reaching some of the more boring episodes.
Yeah.
Reach.
Got no money in the bank, unhappy, but 500,000. So
we've got an all right business as well, Lloyd.
Yeah. No, only joking. We're happy and making money.
So yeah, to go back to the question, what is capacity planning?
Sorry.
I
was trying to make it less boring by not talking about it.
Right.
I find this really interesting, so you won't. So it's basically working out if you have the resources you need to do the work in your business. Ooh. Bloody hell. Calm down, guys. No, stop cheering.
Give context. So someone, if they're listening, they can think, oh, I have that problem, and that will help with that.
Okay, two people. You've got Clive. Clive works on his own, and he makes grips for squash rackets. Okay?
Okay.
Clive is getting really busy, and he's getting all these people saying, can you do this by Friday, Clive? Can you do this month? And he's going, yeah, I think so. But he doesn't really know if he's got enough time to do all this work. So he's letting people down. He doesn't know if he needs to contact Tim to come and help him out next week, because he has no idea if he has enough time. Okay. So just one person, and it can cause issues like you don't have enough time to invest in your own business because you don't know how much time you've got. You can let down people.
Not do as good a job with the quality of what you're doing.
So capacity planning allows you to actually work out the exact time you have in your business, and if you have any spare time, or if you need to find people. Another thing, so outside of Clive, could be a business like ours. So you might have a department with 8 people in it, and you're taking on new work, but you obviously need to know, you've got customers saying, when can that work be done by? If we sign on the dotted line today and say, yeah, we want to work with you, will that be done by the end of July? And you've got another department saying, can you do this work internally for the business in the next 2 weeks? If you don't know the capacity you have in that department, you can't make any of these decisions, or you can, but normally you muck them all up.
I'm glad you shared that as a second example, because I don't know how many squash racket repairers we have listening to the podcast.
Other than Clive. You're welcome.
But it could, all anchors listening, any type of business that delivers a product or service. Service, is it mainly service-based business, I guess?
No, both. Because you can have a factory of people making products, and you need a capacity plan. So capacity planning traditionally is used in bigger businesses, where there'll be people that have 500 people, working for a big company, manufacturing stuff, selling stuff, and they need to know if they have the capacity in their team or in their separate teams, or if they need to move workload around. So traditionally it's used for big businesses. I've found it crazily useful in our business that doesn't have 500 people.
Something I've realised over the years to do with this is that the smaller businesses that act like bigger businesses stand out from their competitors. And we've only learnt this because we never used to think like a big business.
Yes.
But now looking at some of our competitors and the way they're, that we've been working working longer than them, and we've learnt this, I can see us standing apart from them because we're having these processes and these things in place.
I completely agree. And I think that I had a moment where I realised when our business was turning over something like £250,000 a year, and our accountant said, it kept asking us like, "Oh, do you have anything like this?" And they were trying to help us, and we had all of these things in place. And eventually they said, the process you have in place around your finances and forecasting and stuff are in line with the companies that are making between sort of 3 and 10 million a year. And that was one of the moments I realised actually, the reason why we're managing to improve our business so much and achieve what we're achieving is because we are using things that bigger businesses use before we need them, and that's how we're stepping up. I think that's a really good point. So that's why I'm saying, if you are Clive, and obviously that's a really random business, but if you are a freelancer, if you're just working on your own, this is still useful. Or if you've got a team that you're managing of, it could be 2 people, it could be you and another, or it could be a team of 20 people, or it could be you're an operation. If you're an operations director and that kind of thing, you probably know about this stuff, but it's also for, I've got 200 people. Right. Good stuff. Sorry, Dan.
I was going to ask you, second thing, when did you realise that we needed to do capacity planning? Because was there like an aha moment?
So I didn't realise. And then Dad said, what you need is a capacity planner. So I think it was when the business was still just you and I, and we were having these sort of conversations. I think you, being the sales side of the business, was probably saying to me, I've got this new client that wants to sign up to do this thing. They really need it done by next month. Can we do it? And in reality, most businesses have no way other than just going, oh, can I do it?
Well, that's what we used to do.
To work out if they can or they can't commit to that. Yeah. And most of it's like, probably be all right. Yeah. Yeah. Say yeah. Or potentially, I don't know. It's a bit worrying. Just say no. Both of those are negative. So, and Dad, having worked with bigger businesses and corporations, mainly in manufacturing, you use this a lot and introduced it to us. And at first I was like, oh, that's quite cool. Didn't overly use it for the next couple of years. And then when we started building our team out, realised how useful it was. But it was, so it was a peak when it was just me and you, Dan, starting out the business, a peak of activity when it was like, oh God, do we have time to do this? I don't know. And that's when it became useful.
So this will be useful for pretty much anyone that runs a business that is looking to run it more effectively. And I guess it's also better managing the expectations of your potential clients, because when they're saying, when can you do this? You actually have an accurate way of telling them, looking at our capacity, we can do it then.
Well, if you know how much resource you have left in any period of time, you know that either, we've got, so say I'm just on my own. I've got 30 days in this month. You might look at it and say, I've got 10 days spare. So you know that you've got 10 days this month to take on new client work of up to 10 days, to invest in your own business, or have a holiday, or a mixture of any of those things. Or the other way, you look at it and go, oh my God, I've got 30 days in this month and I've just mapped out the capacity and I've got 42 days work. And then it highlights that you need to take action because that's not physically possible. And I would say at that point, don't just say, I'll have to work hard, because that's absolutely mental, fitting 42 days in 30. It's saying, okay, right, I need to communicate with this client to say, in advance, to say, really sorry, we're really working hard on this for you, but it's going to be 7 days late. Or, right, I need to get extra help, extra resource, outsource some stuff to do that. And actually thinking further ahead, if I've got 40 days work in 30 days, am I too cheap? And this is why loads of people want to work with me. Or actually, am I just doing well and I need to hire someone else? And
I feel
take
like
those sort of
this has
decisions.
been a game changer from our business. This isn't something I manage, this is what you manage. But from an outsider's perspective, it's been amazing to see how we can plan more effectively in advance. Like you've just mentioned, knowing that if we've got extra time available, how could we allocate that to, use it as effectively as possible to help grow our business. And also times when we've had meetings like, crap, we're literally like a month of extra time we need and we haven't got enough resource. Let's hire people, or let's,
Exactly. And again, in the last couple of episodes, we've spoken about planning ahead and forecasting things so you know if you need to hire people and that kind of thing. But with this capacity planning, we managed to, at the beginning of April, or maybe the end of March, we managed to see that in June, we would definitely need an extra video editor. So if you
That's
think,
mental when you
what
think
a
about
great tool that's what, 2.5 months in advance, we saw a problem at 2.5 months out there and knew we needed to hire someone and gave us 2.5 months to do that. So we've got that, we've hired that person before June. They're already within the business. They're being trained up before we need them. And that's exactly what this is for, basically. Highlighting either issues or opportunities where you can use your time or you haven't got enough time.
And before we dive into the practical sort of steps and tips for how people can implement this, can you explain what kind of form this comes in? Because people think a capacity planner, what is that? Is it something on a bit of paper?
Yeah.
What is it?
So there may be far better ways of doing this, but I can tell you,
I like your honesty.
The way, I'm always open to learning. So I'd be interested to hear perhaps bigger corporations that do have the 500 people have software that does this really well. But we've got the way that we do it, and we've got the way that I've seen some other businesses do it. So we do it, sounds old school when I say it, Excel spreadsheet.
Oh.
But it could be a Google sheet if you want to sound a bit cooler. But quite simply, each person that you have within your business has a little square for every day. And that little square gets color coded towards different projects or clients, and you can work out, are there any, this sounds really like simple, are there any empty squares? Do they need more to do? Or are there too many squares? We've got to sort this out. They need less to do. And it sounds so simple, but obviously, so I have this for about 12 people. And so I find this really fun. It's like, oh, this person's got too many squares. Let's move, and then you go, oh, that project, actually that person can work on that as well. And they've got 5 squares available. And the way you should look at it, first thing I put in is holidays. So each person might have annual leave or bank holidays. Fill those squares up, because if you don't think about that, you're not going to have enough time.
What colour are those squares, Lloyd?
For me, they're black. Then you have a different colour for each client or each project, depending on the sort of work you're doing. Have that colour code somewhere that you can see. And then, very importantly, if all of your squares are filled up with client work, you're shit. No, you're not shit. But I would see that as a big problem unless that person's in a very specific role. Nearly everyone needs time, sort of admin time. So there's things that don't come under a particular project or client, and people will need time to do. So we have yellow squares for admin. And everyone will need at least one day a month, but depending on your business or what you do, they might need one day a week to do that kind of in-house stuff that needs doing that isn't attributed to a certain client. But also our green squares are very important.
My green squares.
So 25% of the capacity in our business as a maximum, but we're usually quite close to 25%, are green squares. And that is the effort that we put in, the days that our team put in to our own business and our own marketing.
And each month we have a monthly management meeting where I come up with a plan for how we can best allocate that up to 25% time of our team's time towards marketing, and then present that to Lloyd and say, this is the plan, this is what we're going to do.
Do you know what I think will be crazily helpful for listeners? So many people, whether you've got a small business or you're working in a bigger business and managing a department or something like that, people are like, oh, we got so much client work, we never get round to doing this good stuff we want to do to improve our business or improve what we're doing. If you put those green squares in advance,
it's impossible
to say we're working on our own business, we're marketing our own business, you then highlight that you haven't got enough time, and then you do something about it, rather than every month getting to the end of the month go, we haven't had time to do it again. And I think that will be so useful. It's blocking out that time, saying, no, we definitely are using that time for our own business. We're not taking on more work. So you may have a manager or the owner of the business or saying you need to take on this client work. That gives you what you need, the information you need to go back to them and say, actually, Timmy, don't know why Timmy, we can't take that on. Look, we've got these projects on, we've got this time allocated to improve our business or market our own business, which is really important. So we can't take that on. So another department needs to take it on, or we need to delay that project, or we need to hire someone new. I think that is really a really useful tool for people to make sure you're improving your own business.
So, Sandra, the freelance social media manager, who is looking to implement some kind of capacity planning model to do all this great stuff that we've spoken about. What's the process she should go through, or what tips have you got for Sandra or Clive?
So Sandra, Clive, Timmy, whoever you are, and to be honest, even if you've got any other name, that's fine. Firstly, so there was another example of how to do it. So either you'll be setting up that spreadsheet, and it can be really simple, names at the top, whether it's one name or 20, and 30 squares for the month, or some businesses that are much more. This can't be if you're working from home or anything, but in a location, they'll actually have a big like whiteboard where they'll have coloured like magnets that go on it, and you can move them around and that sort of thing. If you want a more physical thing, people can see in a physical location.
Nice.
So either way, you need to set up the people and the amount of squares.
So that's step one.
Step one, do some squares.
I guess also, Lloyd, just to give a bit more help, I'm sure there must be templates and models online.
That's
like
why
Google Capacity Planner.
That's why I'm saying there definitely is a template
Don't
online.
just make
probably
squares,
a better way of doing it. But this, you can hopefully picture simply in your head how this works by me saying this. And once you do that, you want to color code absolutely everything. Anything you or your team are spending time on, make sure it has a color, and put the next 3 months' work that you know that you have to do in there. And don't sort of go, oh no, God, that's not going to fit. I better not put that admin time in. That defeats the whole point of this. Put everything in, and don't worry about if it's saying you need 60 days in a month. That's what we want this to do, to highlight where you need more time. So put all of that in, see where you are at the moment, and this will either highlight to you, we've only got 12 days of work and we're taking a month to do it. This is our normal sort of workload. Like and that then shows you the opportunity. Hang on, we're clearly not working as efficiently as we can. We could probably make double the amount of money we are in our business if people had 24 days to do 30 days of work rather than 12.
This, again, is highlighting a massive mistake we made early on. When we were much more naive and inexperienced, we used to get a project and not track how much time it took us to deliver it. We would just do it until it was done. And then that's not an effective way of growing a business. Now, we plan a certain amount of days and resource allocation to a project. We do it and track how long it actually took, and then learn from that and figure out, oh, maybe we under or over-egged that, and then make the changes accordingly. And we also, in our weekly meeting, we keep our team accountable to say, oh, why is this taking an extra day or 3 days?
Yeah, now we have even more processes in place. Like you're saying, every single week we're tracking if we've taken those extra days or we've got days free, and we can adapt over time. So you can improve on this. Setting it up's one thing. This will be improving throughout the time that you're working.
Right.
So you'll either see that you've got those days, that's opportunity there. Your business could be making more money, or you could be working less, basically.
Win-win.
Win-win. Or the other side, which you'll see we've got too much going on. And you can this is a great tool. If you've got a manager or someone higher up that you believe is giving you or your team too much work to do and it's not physically possible, it might be hard to approach that. If you have this and you say, look, I'm really worried about this workload, and now that I've used a capacity planner, I can see we've got 20% more work than our team can physically do in the time that we pay for them to work here. That's the other way this could go, and again, really useful for you to see.
I've just realised this could be really useful for an employee of a company, like you were just sort of saying or hinting to, that if you're a marketer working for a brand that feels like you're burning out and you've got too much on, you could literally look at your work for the next month, set it out in the days and see like, oh, I've got 20 days of work I'm supposed to do, and this is 40 days, and you could present that to your manager and say, this clearly is too much for me to deliver.
Yep.
Rather than just actual businesses.
And because you're showing the actual information, it's not your opinion. You're not saying, I believe this is too much for me to do. You're saying, you've given me work that takes this amount of time. I don't have 40 days in a month. And can help the whole business improve, hopefully.
Cool.
But yeah, so you do your little squares, stick everything in, color coded.
Sounds mental.
And the next point is you really need to stick to it, or track any extra days or the days you didn't spend on things. So there's no point doing this and then be like, oh yeah, that client project I was supposed to spend 5 days on, did 15, but that's the way things go. I think if that happens, you need to track it and then say, well, I'm never going to sell that sort of project to a client for 5 days if it's going to take 15.
So triple the
next
price.
month when I sell it, I need to be putting 15 days in there. Be realistic. Don't just kid yourself and be like, well, I did put 5 days, but it's taken 15, because then you'll never be improving, basically.
Also, another thing I've sort of seen from afar, when things change, it's important to swap things out as well in the current month.
Yeah.
So if a project gets delayed, move another project forward that's supposed to be started next month.
It's really quick to see how that can work, how you can use the time and resources as efficiently as possible. And please, if you need time off, put it in there, because otherwise it won't happen. If you're either like a business person working on your own or with a small team and you're like, God, I never have any time off, put it in there and it will happen if you follow all of this. Because you'll then go, oh, well, if I want my week off, I need to find someone to do this 5 days of work. And then you can actually do it rather than get there and think, oh no, what's going on? And that's as simple as it is, really. It's putting the stuff in, understanding if you have a problem that you need to, either you have a problem or an opportunity, and how you do that. So you could be moving squares to someone else, or you could be outsourcing so that you have a new column for freelancer and the squares go into their days. Or like we said, the opportunity, you start filling that opportunity with new client projects or investing in your own business, marketing your own business.
And we can't emphasize enough how powerful this process and it is, because we've learned from not doing it well to now doing it. We've still got things to learn, but it's made a huge difference to our business. This isn't just one of those things that we're saying, yeah, do this extra random thing that's not useful. This has been incredibly useful to help us grow, hasn't it, Lloyd?
A massive benefit for your people and your business, I think, is you can get to a point where you know that you're not, hopefully if you've got everything right, you're not overstretching people. Because if I see that someone has 40 days work to fit into the next month, we're going to be firstly talking with that person and saying, looks like you're going to be really busy, so we need to do something about this. But I think over time, if you're taking those actions to make sure, I know there's peaks and troughs, so everyone has busy weeks, busy months where it's like, cool, our whole team have been busy. This has been hectic, hasn't it? But not to an extent where you're overloading people consistently over a long period of time, because that will make people leave, that will make people stressed, that will make people not want to work for you. So I think that's something that I think is really important, that I can see, oh no, Taylor is really busy this month, so we need to take some of that workload off him somehow. Otherwise, if we give him 2 months of work to do every month, at some point he's going to go, well, this is shit and I don't want to do this anymore. Please never do that, Taylor.
Wow, that was really interesting.
Good. I hope the listeners think it was. You can tell I find it interesting, but because I'm boring, sometimes that's not a good judge.
That was really good. And I mean, next week's episode, we've got something a bit more fun, looking at some of the lies you've been told in marketing. So it's probably less sort of Lloyd boring and more fun, Dan.
So if you're here for boring Lloyd, skip next week. If you're here for fun Dan, listen to next week's episode.
But honestly, if you do enjoy these episodes, we speak about this quite a lot. We've noticed an increase recently in people messaging us, posting about the podcast and sharing links to the episodes. And we really do appreciate that. So yeah, if you really enjoy this, please do share it and post about it and tell other people. And
Yeah.
it helps more people listen to it. And
Yeah,
hopefully
please
enjoy
do.
it.
We really want to grow this, help as many people as we can. And we want to have more people listen to the podcast. That's good for us as well. Win-win. Win.
So yeah, we'll
Three
see
wins.
you in your ears.
See you in your ears next week.
Bye.
Bye.